Excellent. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the June 2021 Southern Fried DNN User Group meeting. We are here in the evening time. One of the things that we're trying out this year with a lot of renewed content and renewed activity, much of it from the efforts, and thank you for the efforts from David Poindexter as he organizes things for Southern Fried here and gets us organized with new speakers and kind of a new lineup. But we are here in the evening. We always do the third Thursday of the month, but right now it is 6:30 in the evening Eastern time, and we're going to go every other month and swap between a daytime meeting time and an evening meeting time. That way we can more tailor to a wider audience and get some of our European and international user group members to join us. And we did have a wonderful session last month that went very well, and we saw a lot of new faces, and that was invigorating. It was fantastic. So here we are back in the original time slot, and we are joined tonight by two excellent guests. We have the undeniably original, the present, and from the beginning of DNN through today, Will Strohl is on with us, his mightiness, and we're thrilled to have him sit and talk with us today. I'm going to talk about DNN Awareness. This is part of our series where we are going through talking about the advisory groups and really hearing from the four corners of the DNN community to hear what's going on, what's important, and what's coming up next. So I'm looking forward to talking with Will about that. But then we also have on Steve Krantzman, back around Christmas time. He posted some blog articles on the DNN community website that were focusing on tips and tricks for making the most out of CKEditor in your DNN instance. And that sounded like a fantastic topic for a Southern Fried. So we're thrilled to have Steve on with us here tonight as well. As always, we're going to kind of run through an order as we get to our speakers. To begin with, we need to thank our sponsors. We have Manage.com as a sponsor for the Southern Fried DNN user group and for our website. So we need to say thank you very much to the sponsors who help make not only Southern Fried DNN happen, but all of those community events and all those things that we count on in DNN to keep us as a community talking to each other and seeing each other regularly. That happens because of our wonderful sponsors, and Manage.com is certainly one of those that we appreciate. Awareness, buzz, community buzz is the main thing that we move into next. And I've got a few screens open to bring up a couple of different topics. So I will jump into those. One of the articles that is out now on the DNN community website was posted there by Mitch Sellers. And it's kind of an announcement and overview of the polydeploy functionality that was donated to the DNN community. We should see it coming up in the future, either as community installs or part of the build. I'm not really sure the direction there, but polydeploy was big news a few years ago at DNN Summit in Colorado. And Krantzman was there and really talked about it with a lot of excitement. The main thing that it allows you, if you're not familiar with it, is the ability to install multiple DNN modules at the same time or in the same process without having to restart and reload in between each one. And more importantly than that, it allows you to do it from a programmatic standpoint through APIs so that you are able to manage things with the same effort a lot easier. So polydeploy is a pretty big, pretty exciting thing to be coming to the community. So you can dig into more of the information about that by reading through Mitch's article.
Yeah, Ryan, just to
knowing more
than
me, David or Will, you want to add in on that?
Yeah, happy to speak to it a little bit more here. Leadership's been working with Krantzman on potentially opening this up, and bringing it over, and they graciously agreed to that. They, like you said, they brought this to the community as an open source project for them about 3 years ago at a DNN Summit, and it's been great, and a lot of people have adopted it for both installing, multiple modules through a UI, but as well as remotely through continuous integration or continuous deployment environments like Azure DevOps or GitHub Actions or anything like that. And they, as happens with a lot of these, they put a lot of effort into building the initial build out, but it's tough for companies sometimes to maintain solutions like this. So in coordination with them, they were able to open it up and transfer it over to the DNN community GitHub organization. So it's actually there now on GitHub and ready to receive some contributions. The kind of the long, and Mitch speaks to this a little bit in the article, but the long-term plan is to hopefully get it to a point to where it could potentially be rolled into DNN platform as part of the core delivery for it and functionality. There's some things in the user interface that needs to be updated and brought up to some more modern standards on that. So that's kind of the focus at this point. So if anybody's interested in getting involved in the project, feel free to reach out to any of us in the leadership. Glad to plug you into that. But it's a great contribution. Thank you so much to Ken Terrace.
Yeah, that is fantastic. One of the other articles that is right there in the DNN community website blogs came in from Clint Patterson. Clint just joined us a moment ago, so I may ask him to chime in on this, but this is a great article to post in a location where we all benefit from the open source community helping improve and update, whether we are talking about the core DNN instance itself, or if we're talking about many of those older modules that we know and love, the links module, the documents module, the events module, those ones that Daniel Valadas has spent so much time bringing up to speed so that they can stay current. There's an easier way now to show your support, whether you're talking about one-time donations or subscription donations. GitHub had last year, just a little bit before that, made a method so that you could have a subscription, and like a Patreon account or something like that, you could contribute monthly to the people who were supporting you and that you were wanting to support in return. And now they've modified that so that it's easier because you can do one-time donations. Clint, how's that for an overview? Want to chime in some more with that article?
Well, first of all, I just want to make sure that you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yep, we hear you well.
Yeah, so no, I mean, your summary was spot on. I mean, GitHub had it to where you could do it recurring, which I think is awesome, especially if you're kind of like a business and you just want to support, people who are maintaining. But for individuals, not everybody wants to or can financially sign up for that reoccurring, payment. And I mean, the first time when they opened it up to where you could sponsor, I mean, I was looking for the one-time button and couldn't find it. And so when they finally added it, that was good to, at least for me, because, you may just be feeling good one day, or you may hit a big bonus at work, or like whatever it is, just, in that moment, you want to go and do something without feeling like you're on the hook for a recurring responsibility. And so I had been meaning to do it. And I did want to try to document it and just raise awareness for everybody to know that it's possible to do it. We should be doing it, and just trying to show a little bit of love. So hopefully somebody somewhere saw it and tucked it away in their mind, and maybe at some point in the year they'll contribute as well. So if you are a maintainer and you do not have, there's certain things that you need to do in your profile. I mean, it's just like a setting, right? That you need to say you want to allow people to sponsor you. If you're doing any type of work on anything, I encourage you to make sure that your profile allows for people to support you as well. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's a really good point there. We might put in bug requests if the person doesn't have themselves set up to receive sponsorship, so that we can get them sponsored. I'm the perfect use case of what you're describing there, Clint. Myself and our company, we're primarily DNN integrators, and we're using different modules. And when we're talking about the core older modules, the events, the documents, the links, heck, the iframe module, When we put those in place, that's great, and our client sites are benefiting from those. But now that we have a one-time support button, as I use those in sites, I have the ability to then turn around and put a one-time donation straight from the client that's receiving it back over to those people. So I am going to start making use of this, whereas I haven't done that too much yet. So this is perfect. Thanks for letting everybody in the community know about this. So as always, we kind of pull these things out of the DNN blogs. If you are wanting to catch up with news and information in the DNN community, then the DNN blogs is a great place to see new information and new things that are getting posted all of the time. Let's see. I have a few other things in here just to mention, things that I've seen or pulled up recently. One was a new release that came out from EasyDNN. It's an accessibility module. We have had some Southern Fried meetings where we talked about ADA compliancy and accessibility in the past, and it's always a good topic. We could always look forward to doing that again with new information or more in depth in the future. But in the past, we've had people come on and talk about things that you can do to help with ADA compliancy, with following regulations, making it easy for people to communicate with you. But for sites where you may not have full control and you may not have the ability to change out the skin and do under the hood work that you need to, the EasyDNN accessibility module has some interesting features. It does install like a module, and then once it's in place, what it basically gives you is a wheelchair icon graphic here to imply accessibility. And some of the things that it does are mostly style and interface related. So you are able to do some things like increase the contrast and make the website black and white. You can change the fonts here from a standard font to a font that helps with dyslexia and is easier to read. Different types of things like that. So there's a lot of interesting features that come inside of this. And if you need a plug and play type of thing that can help you, I won't say that this makes things instantly ADA compatible or compliant, but it's an effort and it can move you in the right direction. So I thought that was nice, given some of the topics we've used or presented recently, to talk a little bit about ADA things that are new and happening in the community. Another announcement that we did make at the Southern Fried last month was to announce that DNN Summit 2022 is now being planned, and we are able to officially announce that DNN Summit 2022 is in Las Vegas. It is being planned as a hybrid event. That means it will be an event that is online with hop-in, just like last year's event. If you attended last year's event and enjoyed going to the sessions and participating in an online fashion from anywhere in the country and anywhere in the world, then you're going to be thrilled, because DNN Summit 2022 will also be in hop-in. So everyone will be online and making presentations in that manner. But if you were missing out on the social interaction and you were missing out on being somewhere and getting away from the office, or as it were, getting away from the home office, then you'll also be thrilled that this is a hybrid event, and we are going to be heading out to the MGM Grand in Las Vegas and having the event at that location, which means that people who are together in person will have evening events like DNN After Dark and networking and hangout times, as well as, I'm sure, some social activities as we get out onto the sidewalk and walk the strip to see the spectacle that is Las Vegas. I will invite and encourage some of the others here on the DNN Summit board and with the group and organization to talk a little bit, but I'm gonna pass it to Will Strohl here for a minute. Will, you just posted a photo for us. Weren't you just there? You're on mute.
Yeah. So I was, as you mentioned that, because I wasn't sure if it was going to be announced yet, so I didn't prepare. But,
it is announced. We're able to announce it.
Yeah, I was just now looking for the photo. Yeah, I'm at MGM Grand right now.
Oh, you're at the Grand right now.
Oh yeah, like I don't know if you can see the green building in the background. That's MGM Grand. I'm here. It's like unintentional coincidence, but it's a nice place. I do recommend that anybody who wants to
You see, when we did our first year at DNN Summit and we did Orlando, Mitch was able to fly down and scout it out for us and learn a little bit about the location. So Will by proxy is doing a little bit of scouting for us and helping us figure out some things. And the benefit, he gets to be in a nice location. So yeah, DNN Summit 2020, we are moving forward with a lot of things. We will have updates to the website soon enough. Soon we'll start registration, we'll start call for speakers, and all of those usual things are just ahead of us in the year. But it's not too soon to start thinking about a February trip to Las Vegas if you are interested in coming in person, and for watching out for those signups in Hopin if you're interested in being online. So that's a little bit. Mark or David, would either of you two want to talk just a minute about the DNN Summit? To add anything?
Well, I was just going to say awesome work on the logo. Thanks to Ryan and his team at More Creative.
Well, thank you. We have fun with that. Every few years we get to do that, and it's a lot of fun. Mark, you can come off of mute if you have anything to add in, but otherwise we'll scoot right on. If anyone else has other DNN community announcements or DNN buzz type things, chime in now if we want to bring anything else up on screen, or if you have noticed anything in the community that's newsworthy. I'll give everybody a second to raise a hand if you got anything. David or Clint, did you have any other items that I missed that are worthy of bringing in?
I do not.
All right.
Was that about DNN Summit you're talking about, or just in general?
No, just in general, DNN community, DNN buzz, because we're ready to move on to introduce our first speaker.
Yeah, I had sent you a link earlier on the Too Sexy, the new version of Too Sexy that has a ton of new features and stuff. So I think there's a blog post if you just go to toosexy.org.
I think there is.
Not there.
I was going to say the one that I have here is about specifically the formulas, but I know there were some new things
not
that were released.
One. If you go to toosexy.org, there is a blog there. And click on blog. And there you go. That blog there, there's tons of new features and stuff, on the latest version of this. So they haven't quite gotten to an LTS on this, a long-term support on this, but some really exciting things in here.
All right. Well, we are ready to move over. And David, I'll pass the mic to you here. We have Will Strohl to speak with us, and I thought it'd be fitting if you gave us a little bit of an intro and introduce both Will and our main speaker for the evening.
Well, for those of you that do not know Will Strohl, he is a legend in the DNN community, one of in the leadership, and has inspired so many to really participate in the community and not just sit on our duffs and watch, so it's been great to see him over the years and so forth. He's the CEO of Appendo Ventures, which Ryan is showing here on the screen. And man, have your pictures changed over the years, Will?
We need more events. We need more people taking pictures of me so I can change this out.
I'm just doing an A/B comparison with you right now, looking at this picture and looking at you on screen. It's like, man, you kind of trimmed it up there a little bit, huh? But no, thanks for joining us, and thanks for all that you do. I know you're going to be speaking a little bit about awareness and things like that we need to be aware of as community members and so forth. But thanks for joining us, taking time out of your day to do this, and looking forward to hearing you speak.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to hearing me speak soon.
Will, would you like us to pass you the screen, or do you want to bring up anything in specific?
No, I can take the screen. Yep. As soon as you stop. I can't share when you're sharing. Okay, there we go.
Yep, just had to click.
There we go. Uh-oh, internet's going, what happened? There it goes. So I just figured I'd show the real website. You were on the DNN software website. So what you were just showing is like where the groups are. So we have leadership team. So so this is where all the latest information for that
Hey,
stuff is, and we're going to be talking. Yeah.
Will, I'm not sure if everybody else is having a trouble or not, but you're coming in and out. I mean, you're coming through, but it's sounding incredibly thin at times. So I'm not sure if it's. I tried to mute everybody. So
Okay.
I think we've got
So
feedback.
just in case, I'm going to stop my video just in case that has an impact.
Oh, yeah, you sound really clear right now. So.
No, you sounded instantly better there, and you were still screen sharing, so I think you're good.
Okay. All right. So can you hear me now?
Yeah, sounds great.
Like right.
All right. All right. Perfect. So yeah, so we're talking about the awareness group, which happens to be this one over here. So anyway, and as Ryan pointed out, I do happen to be at MGM Grand. This is a selfie from yesterday at my feet.
I think when you start getting louder, Will, it's fading out there. So you sound great.
So talk lower.
Maybe. Yeah, it may just be
Okay.
overdriving or something. I'm not really sure.
Okay. Well, I'll just keep trying to plug away and you keep telling me when I need to fix it. All right. So we're going to talk just a few minutes about leadership. So here we go. First and foremost, I've been doing things for a while, so I guess that was pretty well covered. So this is my I love me slide, as I like to call it. Everybody has that requisite slide. I did stuff. So yeah, I did a few things, and that's how you can find me online. So I'm at Will Strohl everywhere. My personal site is willstrohl.com. Yeah. So what is the awareness group? Very simply put, our mission is basically to create more awareness of all things DNN, not just in our own ecosystem, but in other ecosystems as well. Because it's while it's good for us to tell each other what's going on, it's even better to get everybody else involved, so even more people can be as passionate as we are about DNN. But what I like to really kind of equate the awareness group to is we're the marketing arm of the DNN community. And just like the rest of us that do anything with DNN, it is always very, it's always worth reminding people that this is 100% volunteer effort by all of us. So we're always looking for more volunteers. And as volunteer things go, sometimes you have more bandwidth, sometimes you have less. Don't think we have a team of people that are just constantly marketing every single day. We're doing as best we can every single day that we can. So as far as the team, we have quite a few people. Like I said, people come in and out. These are several of our volunteers. This can be seen on the website we just saw. And we're always looking for folks that are willing to come in and pitch a hand and help out. So this may or may not be missing a few people. And if it is, let me know. So what do we do? Oh, and by the way, one of the main purposes of that slide is just actually to say thank you to everybody that does help. So there's a lot of people here that do various types of things, whether it's videos or blogs or helping out with moderation on the forums or whatever it is. So what do we do? So originally when we came together, we identified as a group areas that we definitely know that we need to focus on, not just now, but moving forward as well. So one of those is creating a user group program on the site, increasing social media activity overall across multiple channels and platforms, increasing blogs, not just on our own site, but on other sites as well. Like another one that popped up recently that I'm really enjoying is dev.to, for example. There's also medium.com, whatever. Creating more YouTube videos and tutorials. And the reason we say YouTube is because while there are other video platforms that I would say are arguably better, like Vimeo, the discovery is not as good. So YouTube is really the place to be. Creating training courses, so folks that can learn how to use DNN and build on it and whatnot. Build a curriculum so that way, folks that are teaching classes in high school or community college or whatever, they can use DNN in that. Making sure there's new extensions being published out there. We're talking about primarily open source ones, and also updating existing ones, making sure they're maintained. Our .org website, so that's dnncommunity.org. That's our official DNN website. So there's one place to go for that. And I always split out theme creation outside of all the other extensions, because if you're not aware, DNN has 20-something extensions or something like that. Well, actually, it's more than that if you count all the providers. So there's a lot of extensions out there. Themes happen to be one of them, but themes are very important. So we always kind of itemize that out. And then we have a community dashboard that helps us view and take a look at and measure activity, not just on the DNN site, but other mediums as well. So it gives us a leaderboard, and then we're continually iterating on that. We have some cool plans for that in the future. And then to complement the user group program, a speaker program. So user groups can find speakers, and speakers can find content ideas and whatnot. So as far as, before I get to that next bullet point, so one of the things that we transitioned to towards the end of last year is instead of kind of divvying up over ourselves over those all those different focus areas, one of the things we thought we should do for at least this year, maybe longer, is focus solely on the website. It doesn't mean that other stuff can't be done and won't be worked on, but the website is basically our source of truth. So we want to make sure that everything that we do, or amongst everything that we do, we have a strong focus on that, because when people come to find us, we first and foremost want to make sure that people end up there. And then if they do end up there, we want to try to do our best to make sure that they have a pleasant experience, right? So some of the goals we have for our website right now, and that's our website, and it belongs to all of us, is increasing the visibility and awareness of the website overall. So kind of just basically saying what I just said. And one of the things that we're working towards is increasing the domain authority score. I failed to look it up today, but the last I checked, I think since we launched, when we first launched a site, it's at 0, and the goal of any website that wants to be popular wants to go to 100. The last I checked, I think we were like something like 17, if I remember correctly. So we're doing pretty good. We're going the right direction. And if you're not familiar with domain authority, that's one of those things where it's one of those measurements that helps various search engines rank the links that are coming from your website. What kind of power do they have? And so it helps with SEO overall. So you want, like for example, on your own sites, you want inbound links from other sites that have as close to 100 as possible, right? And then overall improving search engine optimization. So one of the things that we're doing, and I do this on myself on a weekly basis, I have a tool that's scraping the site and telling me things every single week. So one of the things that we're doing is reviewing and optimizing for keywords as much as we can. So when we are creating content, we're keeping that in mind. And some of that's organic though, since we have blogs that people contribute to on their own, like we just saw when Ryan was sharing, as well as people just creating forum posts and not even realizing that they're having a positive impact on the community just by using the forums. The more you use the community forums, this is for everyone that ever sees this, the more you use the community forums and not Slack and not Facebook, the more you help the community grow. Just saying. And then we're also, as part of this journey, we're updating some of the core modules since we're only using open source modules on our community website. We've been updating those to help improve the SEO, which not only helps us out, but anybody else who happens to be using those modules gets that as a benefit as well. So we just recently updated the forums module a few times, as well as the blog module. So we're doing some good stuff there. And then adding and adjusting content overall. And then, as we can, we're strategically adding new content that is keyword rich. We got plenty of pages that are going to be updated over time, as time permits and as volunteers are able to do so. And then, of course, updating the metadata on all the pages. I just want to put a little shout out there to John Slater, who's not on the call, but he's a well-known person in the DNN community. He likes to say he doesn't know how to do things. He very freely says that to people, but he does know how to do things. So he updated all the pages that weren't dynamic. So thank you for that we've already seen a couple spikes as a result. And then this is also, just like we had done in the past, we're dogfooding DNN. So whenever there's a new DNN release, guess where it goes? One of the first places that gets upgraded is our dnncommunity.org website. So if you're not familiar with the term dogfooding, I don't know what genius decided to use that as a term, but that's so basically like, why feed your dog something you wouldn't eat? So you eat your own food, so you eat your own dog Hopefully nobody's eating dinner right now. And if you are, hopefully it's not corned beef hash because I just gave you a visual. All right. And some recent updates. I mentioned the community forums module. So there's some updates to help with things like canonical links. So that way when the page dynamic, that's one of those modules where when you put it on a page, it actually dynamically in the background, without you doing anything, it's actually creating a lot of pages. So every time you create a new forum post, that's actually a new page. Whenever you look at a tag for a forum and you see like everything's tagged with it or the forum itself, those look like new pages to things like Google, right? And so when you do that, one of the things that helps improve your search engine optimization is to make sure that there's a canonical link, especially in something like the forums module, because sometimes the pages will look like they have duplicate content, even though it technically isn't. So that helps out a lot. And so these are things we're doing as a community. Same thing with the blog module. We're adjusting for things like H tags and canonical links. There's a pending update for that to help improve some of the things we found that is dynamically creating links inside of the comments that people place. And so sometimes that gives us a short little ding because some of the links shouldn't have been created the way they were, or different things like that. And then, again, as a result of our group working together, we have a new video library on the community website. So you'll find that under the resources menu. And so there's a ton of videos in there already. And we're adding them as we find them. But more importantly, it's going to be one of those things where if you're somebody who is creating videos about DNN, we want you to add them as well. So there's a bunch of stuff in there. Then next is how can you help? So you're listening, you're watching, you're hearing this stuff, but really this is a community effort. No one of us can do this on our own. And and it's also better and funner if we have somebody doing it with us, right? So how can you as an individual in the community help us? So the first thing is, if you have the drive, the resources, the interest, create videos. So anything that's under 4 minutes is huge. That's the sweet spot that people like when they look at videos and that they want to see. Check out any little feature. It doesn't matter if you've already seen somebody do it. There's no reason why we can't have 20 videos on how to upgrade DNN. Everybody's going to have a slightly different take on it, and it's not wrong. It's great. The more content we have, the better. So don't think like, oh, somebody created that how to build a module video in 2010. We're good. No, we can always use new videos. So no matter how big or small the feature is, please. Same thing with blog posts. So anybody can create blog posts, and I would recommend that if you have your own site where your blogs about DNN can live, you can still post them to the DNN blog website, and I have contact information for myself later where you can see how to contact me, and I'll make sure you have permissions if this is something you want to do. But post it on your own blog site and cross-post it to the DNN site, and maybe cross-post it to dev.to and maybe Medium. The more the merrier. As long as you're doing the cross-posting things you're supposed to be doing, where you say it's cross-posted and you link it, it's not. It doesn't have a bad impact. It has only good. So blog posts are kind of easy, especially if you keep them short. Sometimes you'd be like, oh, well, this is gonna be a long one. Well, maybe you divvy that up into 3 different posts, right? Makes it even better. Create social media campaigns, and they can be anything. Like we've been doing something very fun where I call it Fun Friday, and every Friday it's generally something to either promote DNN or bash WordPress or both. Right? So Fun Friday, #Fun Friday, follow Up Into Ventures on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, and you'll see that every Friday we have something interesting. But it could be anything. Like it could be promoting the blog or videos that you have, or maybe being a fan person of the one that you see, and like, oh, this is a great thing, and it helped me do blah blah blah. Or maybe you just had a big win, and you want to put it out there, like, wow, it's so great that David Poindexter did this update to MV Fixsite or whatever, and now I can build this, and it's faster and save me time. Whatever the thing is, keep pushing content out there, and make sure you use #DNNCMS. That'll help us out a lot. Some other strategic hashtags with that would be, just CMS, maybe open source, maybe WordPress, just to step on their toes a little bit. So yeah. Help us build new features, whatever the new feature is. Like I mentioned a couple earlier, we got the user group program, we got the speaker program. There's more work to be done with the leaderboard, the community dashboard. I have built out a whole plan for the forge replacement. That one's already completely spec'd out with what do you call it, wireframes. So we're always looking for somebody to help. And then we also have, actually, this is right after this. I'll get back to that. But we also have a Trello board. So there's a bunch of tasks in there. Some of them are development related, some of them aren't. It's basically a whole bunch of stuff that we have identified that need to be done and just need somebody to pick up the task. So this is a public board, and anybody can contribute to it. But and by the way, this presentation will be going out via SlideShare later, so you can be able to click on this link if you want. So it's clickable. You don't have to write all down those weird characters. And then also help build a new theme, right, David? We need help with that. So we have a new theme, like the design for it's been done. It just needs to be built. So there's a small handful of people that we've identified as kind of the theme team. So we have that to look forward to in the future. And then of course join our group. So we meet once a month. Meet us the first Thursday of every month, if I remember correctly. The first Thursday of the month, and we get together and we try to figure out, like, hey, what have we done over the past month? What do we need to do over the next month? Are there any showstoppers? And so we just keep it to an hour to respect everybody's time, and we have a good time with it. We don't always record it, but when we do, you'll see it on the DNN Community website blog. So that's really the gist of it. I just wanted to make sure that people knew how they could help and what we do, so that way they have more awareness about the awareness. Pun intended. But yeah, so what questions do people have?
Well, Will, I was going to follow up with 2 questions for you. I'm looking forward to talking with you all day today, just thinking about things I'd ask. And you made it too easy for one of the main questions, which was, where do you want people to help the most? If they have just a few minutes, what can they do? But you've made it very easy. The awareness group has made it very easy for everyone to participate. And you've said, here, make some videos, make some blog posts, pitch in with help with the website. But the Trello board makes it very easy for you to see the things that are out there. So I'd encourage people to look through that and see where they can participate. So I'll state the question so you can answer, but you've kind of already answered it. You've got this great support to have people see, where do you need a hand? But so that's the question. Where do you need a hand? Where do you want people to pitch in?
Well, the true answer really is, like, we have all these things that we have identified that need people to help. And those are obviously the main focuses that we as a group are tackling. But the real answer is whatever you're passionate about. Because if we ask you to do something like with a blog and you don't even want to spell the blog, like, then what's the point? You're going to do one thing and you're going to run away or walk away or just not help or whatever, right? So anything that you're passionate about, if you feel like you can or want to or need to figure out how to do that thing, any one of us in the awareness group would be more than willing to help that person figure out how to do that thing. So yeah, don't be afraid to reach out. One of the stories I like to tell sometimes is about how I even found the DNN community and fell in love with it. Was before DNN, I was a PHP guy and I was using PHP Nuke, and I would try to participate in their community through their forums, and I would get really nasty things sometimes, like, why don't you know that already, noob? And I'm like, whoa, okay, that's not cool. Thank you. Like, yes, I'm a noob. That's not my fault. I got here after you, right?
Yeah.
So our community does not do that. I can't think of one instance where anybody's ever done that, and that's part of the reason our community is so awesome. We're all trying to lift each other up, so it's that abundance mentality. Whether we're competitors like with services or not, or something else, we're all trying to work together to just make this a bigger pie, so we all have a bigger slice.
I agree. We have a very special community, and when you spend time in different types of technology communities, some of them are cutthroat, some of them are apathetic, but you can spend a little bit of time in the DNN community and you realize that we're all together in this, and we're all, like you said, pitching in to help each other and help each other learn. So I'm looking through the chat to see if there are any other questions from for Will, there was one that came in. One person asked about the Wikipedia. Who's maintaining the Wikipedia? You can take that one.
So it used to be when DNN Corp had a marketing department, there was always somebody that did that. And for the longest time, as Richard Dumont, and it was Dennis Shao. But they're obviously not around anymore. So since it's Wikipedia, anybody can maintain that. So for example, you might want to go in there, and when the release comes out, you might want to try to be the first one to update the release on the little sidebar there. So anybody can do that. I honestly sometimes forget about Wikipedia, and that's a very important page to update. So thank you for bringing that up, John.
We've had a Southern Fried meeting where we talked about DNN Docs and participating there. Maybe we should have one where we talk about the Wikipedia and put some light on it again, because it is there.
Well, I'm glad you brought up DNN Docs because I forgot about that. David, can we say anything about that?
Yes.
But maybe you should take it because you've kind of been working with it more than I have. I just kind of initiated it.
Yeah. So what we're doing right now is going through a little bit of a transition period where we're shifting kind of who's leading that up and so forth, and getting a team assembled to start getting some of the stuff kind of fixed. There's kind of a long laundry list a bit, for us to try to improve that, and some things. I mean, just simple things that are like, hey, we've got content that's been indexed in Google, and I'm sure that's what kind of triggered you to think about this. It's like we got things that are showing up that really aren't there anymore, or they shouldn't be there anymore, but they are, and it doesn't get cleaned up. So just simple things like that through the build process and cleaning up the environment as we put it out there. Some of those things will be addressed here fairly soon. So we're just working through getting access to everything that we need to get access to in order to be able to do that, as well as once all that kind of infrastructure stuff is set in place, we really want to turn the focus back onto, okay, what is the path forward here for docs, and how do we organize this information and so forth, because there's been a lot of ideas through the years. And, we've executed some of them okay, and some of them not so okay. So we're looking forward to really putting a little bit more focused effort on that out there. So plenty of opportunity for people.
Yeah. So we can't really say anything about the most recent update, is what you're saying.
I'm trying to understand.
We're moving it. We're moving it. We're moving it.
Well, no, we're not ready to say exactly about that, but
yeah. Never mind. Everyone.
But yeah,
it wasn't mentioned.
Yeah.
Hey, can you edit that?
Yeah, I mean, we'll take that out in post.
What we can say is the hosting environment is actually being moved, and so that we can actually, because long story short, it's just been in an environment that is not conducive really for the open source environment. So we're just shifting over to one that is on GitHub Pages, actually is where it's going to be. So once that gets done, there, I think what Will's alluding to is that where that'll actually live domain wise in the future. And we're trying to make some decisions there, making sure we don't, mess up anything from an SEO standpoint or anything like that, or improve, from an SEO standpoint.
Right.
So there's some ideas on that, and we're just fleshing those out at this point.
Yeah. So it's somewhat early with that still.
There were some questions also in the chat. Will, do you want to take one of those? Was kind of asking about community links in from other things. Otherwise, we answered it in chat.
I did answer in chat, but there's a question about will dnnsoftware.com ever redirect their community links to the community website? So the community website, I guess, started 3-4 years ago. I think 4 years ago. And so given the time frame, I think that question answers itself, but there's no real incentive for DNN Corp to ever redirect those pages, because they would instantly lose SEO themselves by doing that. So that's why we were very fortunate and grateful that at the time when we launched, we not only had the support of DNN Corp, but we had their backing to post the messages on all the community pages that says, hey, you're not in the community anymore, it moves here. And so there's a direct link from their site and all those pages to our site.
Yeah.
So those links are going to change.
Yeah. Well, so Will, final question here for you, and we'll switch out, have Steve start preparing himself for some audio here. Will, what are you really excited about for this next year ahead? What's something that you are excited about or reinvigorated by and are looking forward to?
Well, before the end of the year, we have something launching DNN Rise that it's way too early for me to say, but pay attention to our social media to figure it out. I have no issues with getting that word out. So like whatever you're watching, you'll end up seeing it. So if you're watching anything that made you see this video, you'll see it on your radars eventually. But as far as the awareness group, I'm really excited about seeing the impact that we're going to make and through our SEO efforts, because I'm constantly watching the numbers, the right numbers go down and the right numbers go up, and the more we do that, the better it is for all of us. Because no matter what piece of the pie that we're in, whether we're just building themes, we're building another extension, we're doing commercial services, we're doing support, we're doing hosting, we're just building sites, whatever the thing is that we're doing, it's just going to get bigger and bigger. So again, abundance mentality. So that's always my goal, is to help raise the tides for all of our ships, and so that we're constantly making this group and other groups and other events, we're constantly making them bigger and bigger.
Yep. Hey, Will,
And
this
opportunities.
is Dave Weinstein. How you doing? Can you guys hear me okay?
Hey, Dave.
Hey.
Yes.
So my big, I'm a glutton for education and training and learning. I do want to volunteer one of these years. I will, but so to speak, pun intended. But for this summit and the upcoming, or mini summits, have we thought about videotaping the sessions so that the people who pay for joining, if they can't join, if they can't, be there in person, they can watch the, recordings of the summit sessions after the fact, because there's just so much knowledge in them, their sessions, that, people get to take them home, but it's sort of, after a year or so, it kind of disappears from the ether. So if we had video recordings of those sessions, and of course people would have to, give their approval to be recorded, but I've always thought that would, that all that knowledge, and I'd like to watch things twice sometimes, especially your stuff, Will.
Yeah. Sure. Thanks, Dave. So David Poindexter put a couple items in the chat, and he's right, but I want to kind of answer this a little bit more thoroughly. When it comes to recording live events that aren't completely commercial, recording and distributing and maintaining those recordings over time can be a challenge, and it also is a disincentive for people to actually go to the event. So speaking with my previous event hat on, because I used to run that event before it became DNN Summit, the moment you do that, the people are like, I'll just wait for the videos, I'm not going to go. And then you lose out on 75% of why that event is important. So if not more. But with this previous year, we had, as the community, I participate in that group, but I don't run anything, I don't make decisions. So you got to keep that in mind. I do give my opinion sometimes, but I'm very strictly making sure it's just an opinion. But with the use of Hopin, that allowed us to do just that. And so if you attended the event, you still have, even right now, access to all those videos. As far as if they'll ever be distributed in a more public manner, that's not my decision to make. And I would understand if either direction they take that decision, because again, I've worn both of those hats. And this next one, with it being a hybrid, so it's going to use Hopin for people that can't come, and it's going to be in person for people that can. You're going to have that same experience. Did I answer your question, Dave?
Yes, thank you. Yep.
Any other
all right.
questions before we get Steve on here?
I think we tackled a good group of them in the chat, and then if anybody has more questions, we can always come back to them here at the end of the evening as well. Thank you very much,
everybody
Will.
for watching, listening, and all that, and your questions. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank
Thank
you,
you
Will.
very much, Will, for everything you're doing with the awareness group and everything you've always done for the DNN community. Father of the user group, father of the community conferences and Day of DNN. So thank you. Thank you for everything you've always done, Will. David, I'll pass the mic to you. You want to give a little bit of an introduction here for Steve as he comes on?
Yeah, here's Steve, everybody. No, I'm just kidding.
That was hilarious.
Many of you may know Steve if you are in the DNN Open Help Slack workspace. He's very active in there, and I think that's really the first time I saw your name pop up, Steve. And I know you've been around for quite some time, maybe lurking a bit, but now that we have those channels open, you're able to get involved. I know Steve's always really quick to try to help others out and post questions in there often, so that other people can learn from his experience. And Steve, I think, I can't remember your title, but I know you work with the California Association of Oral and Maxillofacial Surgeons. Can you believe I actually said that okay? And so that's, I'm sure that's an interesting world, and maybe you'll tell us a little bit more about that. But thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for taking out your time. I know that you're kind of coming off of a vacation time and a big project. So thanks for
thank you for joining us. Yeah.
For getting it ready for tonight. I really appreciate it.
Oh, sure. No problem. Glad to be here. Can you hear me?
We can. And
Okay.
I'll also pass you the screen share here. I did just bring up just a couple of things because you're also the originator for the DNN Tailwind theme or skin here. So that's important to point out too as we dive into things CKEditor tonight. That's not your only passion. So it's important to point that out too. I'll pass you the screen here.
Thank you. Wow. I don't know if I'd consider, let's see, CKEditor my passion, but I'll go with it for now.
Definitely expertise. We'll go there, right?
For sure. For
I
sure.
don't even know if I'd go that far. There's a lot of
you
people.
stepped in to make organization out of the chaos that many of us have just lived with and thought, you know, okay, I'll fix this one thing, but then I'm just going to back out of everything else. You dove in with both hands. So
Steve, that makes you the guru and the one that everybody goes to for questions about CKEditor.
Well, I'm
That's right.
trying. I'm doing my best.
That'll teach you for putting those blogs out there.
So let's see. So yeah, tonight's presentation, CKE Provider Magic. I don't know if I'd call it magic. It's more like frustration and hair pulling, but that was too long, so we went with magic. But some helpful tips, tweaks, and plugins that you can use for the CKEditor to actually help improve your end user experience. As mentioned, my name's Steve Krantzman. I am a DNN enthusiast. I guess that's what I really consider myself. I'm not really a programmer, even though I did write some VB way back, and I understand JavaScript and C# and other languages. And as David mentioned, I'm the Associate Director for the California Association of Oral and Maxillofacial Surgeons. Basically manage all their IT stuff. It's actually kind of interesting because I started life as a general contractor. I'm still a licensed general contractor, but years back I got out of it because of the cyclical nature of the industry. And I got retrained as a Novell network engineer and administrator. I don't know if any of you really remember Novell, but that was one of the big networking platforms years back. And when I came over to the association, we call it CalAmus, by the way, because the name's way too long. They needed a website, and I developed a basic website for them, but then I realized I didn't want to be the one to maintain it. So I started looking for a content management system so that some of the other office staff could go in and do some basic editing changes. And that's when I stumbled upon DNN, and that was back at the tail end of 3, early on in 4, because I still have my DNN 4 books. And I did do a lot of work with CKEditor. I've done a lot of troubleshooting on CKEditor, so I guess if that makes me an expert, then so be it. But that's a little bit about my background. As mentioned earlier, I did write 2 other posts on CKEditor Provider, and one of them was on customizing some of the default editor provider settings. And that included creating some custom font colors, custom font sizes, adding fonts, some basic customization entries. And then I went on to write the second blog on adding custom styles to the CKEditor Provider. And you can find those blogs on the community website if you want to delve into those a little bit further. Okay, disclaimer about this presentation. Do not use the HTML module to add content to your DNN website.
That's awesome.
Finally.
And the reason I say that is because as of late, I've been schooled by many on the DNN Help community site to use open content or too sexy modules to add structured content to your site because they're far superior options. And I've learned to discover why that is, and I've learned to appreciate both of those modules. But in the event that you need to use the HTML module, let's go ahead and look at how we can make it as user-friendly as possible. I think in today's discussion, what we're going to do is we're going to cover a few items. We'll take a brief history of CKEditor and the editor providers, look at some helpful configuration changes. We'll talk about some of the plugins that are missing that should be included in the provider. We'll look at additional free plugins that add functionality. And we'll look at paid plugins if you don't have anything better to spend your money on. Having said that, let's go ahead and take a look at the history of the CKEditor. It was created in 2003 by Federico, and I'm going to butcher his last name, but it's not Nobin. And it was originally called FCKEditor. And I always wondered why it was called FCKEditor because it kind of has a strange connotation to it. But I realized after doing some research, it was his initials, and that's where FCKEditor got its name. In 2009, it was totally redesigned and rewritten and became CKEditor 3. And in 2012, it was released with inline editing and some paid plugins, and that's where we came up with CKEditor 4, and the current version is 4.16.1. In 2018, once again, he totally rewrote the program with a focus on speed and performance, and it was released as CKEditor 5. CKEditor 4 and 5 are both currently being maintained and developed. And as far as the HTML editor provider goes for DNN, there's a brief overview of the different providers. You can see in the first few versions of DNN, they used free text box. And 3 to 5, they used FCKEditor 1 through 2. In DNN versions 5.4 through 6.1, we looked at, we started transitioning to the Telerik RAD editor. And I'm not sure why it changed, but the name changed from Telerik Editor Provider to RAD Editor Provider, but still used Telerik RAD Editor for versions 6 through 7. In DNN 8 through 9.8, DNN Connect, CKEditor Provider is the default provider. And as of version 9.9.0, I believe the new provider is called DNN Connect.CKE, and it's essentially the DNN Connect CKEditor Provider that was taken over by the community. The CKEditor Provider itself was created by Ingo, and I don't know if that's his first name, if that's his last name. I've done a lot of research, but haven't been able to come up with anything further than that. On GitHub, he's W8TCHA. And for DNN8, he came up with the provider and called it, obviously, DNN CKEditor. The repo's since been archived, and the last version the CKEditor used was 4.12.1. Then in 2015, I believe it was Joe Brinkman, and correct me if I'm wrong, who actually developed or worked on a fork of DNN CKEditor for DNN Connect, and that's when DNN Connect Editor Provider came along. And the last version of CKEditor used in that version was 4.5.3. And I think it stayed at 4.5.3 for quite a few years, and saw quite a few security changes happening without the CKEditor Provider updating CKEditor. And then in 2020, as I said before, the DNN platform took over development of CKEditor, and it's now called DNN Connect.CKE, if again, I'm not mistaken. But the big benefit here is that we finally got an updated version of CKEditor. We went from 4.5.3 to 4.15.1, and that was released in DNN version 9.9.0 and currently in 9.9.1 as well. So out of the box, there's some configuration settings that probably aren't optimal, at least not for my liking. So I've learned to change a couple. As a matter of fact, someone raised on DNN Open Help about a month and a half ago or so, whether there was a spell checker, because they had a client who wanted to use a built-in spell checker. Well, there is a built-in spell checker that we can implement, and we'll take a look at doing that. By default, there's a property called Disable Native Spell Checker, and it's set to true. And basically what that does is stops your browser's native spell checker from spell checking. So we can use a browser spell checker, or we can use a plugin for CKEditor called Spell Check As You Type. And I'm not even sure how you pronounce the acronym, SCAT, but that can be enabled by adding a button to the toolbar, and you can also enable it on startup. Take a look at doing just that. So in CKEditor, we'll go ahead and go into the editor configurations settings. And under the editor config tab, man, there are just a ton of configuration settings for those of you that have ever looked in here. I mean, it just goes on and on and on.
Hey,
And
Steve, are you sharing that?
Yeah, I was going to interrupt there. Sorry, Steve. We're still seeing the PowerPoint screen of missing plugins.
Okay. Let me change shares here. I must not have shared the screen, but the app.
Yeah.
How's that?
There we go.
There we go.
Perfect.
Okay. So going into the provider, you can see a ton of settings here. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. It can be pretty daunting if you haven't ever looked in here. But as I mentioned,
all the contextual help that's there.
Yes, that is true. There is a lot of tooltips that pop up if you're not sure what some of these do, and that can be a big benefit. Let me go ahead and get back up here. And one of the things I want to point out real quick, I'm using the wheel on my mouse to scroll up. Be careful doing that, because if you hover over one of these values and you use your mouse to scroll up or down, you can see you can change that value very easily. So if you use your mouse wheel to scroll up or down, just make sure you're not hovering over a property value. I'm going to go ahead and look for disable native spell checker. Actually, I'm in the wrong, excuse me. I'm in the wrong page here. Let's go to this one. So you can see disable native spell checkers checked by default. I'm going to go ahead and uncheck that. And then the other thing I'm going to do is, while we're here, go into the customized toolbar and we'll change from basic to full. We'll edit that. And you'll notice this spell check as you type plugin is already pre-installed. They just never added the button to the toolbars. So I'll go ahead and find editing down here and I'll just drag that over, save those changes. And now we'll close out of the editor and go back into it. And we can now see if I click within here, you'll start seeing some red squiggly lines indicating misspelled words. Now, if you're going to use your browser's default spell checker, if you right click over a misspelled word, you'll notice in the submenu that pops up, I don't have any spell check options. To use your browser's spell checker within CKEditor, you actually have to hold down your control key and click. And now you can see I have several options to choose from at the top. The other option we can do is we can look at the spell checker here, and I can select check spelling. And this uses a version of web spell checker that is soon to be retired. So I don't know why this hasn't been taken out, but it's still there. And it's just a way for you to use a dialog box to navigate through and make changes to your text. The other option with the button is you can click on it and you can enable the spell check as you type feature. And now when I click back in, and I don't have to hold down my control key this time, I can just right click. And we have more suggestions. And you can see I can find the correct spelling and make those changes rather easily. So obviously there's some third-party spell checkers you can implement, but for a quick and easy way to do some spell checking within the CKEditor, there you have it, just a few quick changes within the config settings. Now, can you see the PowerPoint screen again? Okay, so there's some missing plugins right off the bat that I know they're missing because they're property settings for them in the config screen. So the big one here is Code Mirror. And Code Mirror, I think, is essential if you're going to be doing any kind of source code editing within the editor. It makes it a lot easier to work with your source code by giving you syntax highlighting. You get a lot of format your code if you select that option. You can select the option to auto close your tags. You can change the theme for it. Let's take a look at doing that. And actually, before I go there, one of the things we need to do actually is to download the plugin, which I've already done. And there's the Code Mirror plugin. I've created a shortcut here to add it to my CKEditor 4.1.5 plugins folder. I'll go ahead and just drag that over. So I'm going to drag Code Mirror in.
And so, Steve, while you're finding that, where is that folder in the DNN instance?
Okay, so let me bring up a new window because it's not really showing the path over there, is it? So. Okay, so let me get down. So I'll go to my websites. I've got one 991. If you go to providers, HTML editor provider, DNN connect.cke, JS for JavaScript. There's your CKEditor folder. You can see the version number here, 4.15.1. Navigating in there, here you see the plugins directory. And if I go there, we should see the code mirror folder that I've just dragged in. So once you drag actually, I probably should demonstrate, go to the next thing here. I digress. Let me back up here. So one of the other missing plugins that's really beneficial is keep text selection. And that highlights your selected code when switching back and forth. I got a little ahead of myself here. And then the media embed embed plugin, which allows you to embed a lot of other media content from other sites. To add plugins that don't have buttons, you want to download the appropriate plugin for the version of the CKEditor being used. You want to copy the plugin to the plugins folder. And then you have to add the plugin's name to the extra plugins property, the config file. So now I'll go ahead and head back there. And let's see, just to save ourselves one more step, let's just go ahead and drag that text selection folder over there as well to copy it over. So going into the config settings, we want to look for extra plugins, and the easiest way I found to navigate and find the things is just to do a Control F and type in the first few letters. And here you can see there's extra plugins. This is a comma separated file. So I'll go ahead and put in a comma and we'll type in code mirror. And let's see, and text selection. And we'll go ahead and close out of there. Close out of the editor window and then go ahead and go back in. And I probably should have shown you this before, but if you ever gone into the source code of the CKEditor, it's all black and it's a big mess. Now we have some color-coded code. But right now it's everything's left indented or left aligned and it could use some additional tweaking. So what we can do is going back into the custom editor settings, we can first off under main settings, under configuration, there's an option where you can change the default theme for Code Mirror. I'll go ahead and select one here that seems to be pretty popular in other editors. And then in editor config, we'll look for the Code Mirror settings. There's several that I like to enable. The auto close tag is huge for me because I hate having to type a closing tag. Auto format on startup, so it cleans up that code. And then it'll also show tabs if you've used tabs indent. So I'll go ahead and save those changes. And we'll close out of that. And once again, go back in. And now when we look at the source code, it's a lot more structured. And once again, if you like a dark theme, this is great. If you like a light theme, go back to the default. There's actually about, I don't know, 35 to 50 themes you can choose from. What's also nice about this is it's all line numbers are now available to you. And the thing that really threw me is I noticed there's the drop down arrows of collapse arrows. And I tried clicking on one of those and it just wouldn't collapse. If you want to collapse, just actually click on the number, not the collapse arrow, and that will collapse and expand that section. One of the other big features that, or plugins that we implemented was the text selections. So if I have something selected, let's say trying to find this in my code, I could browse through it for a long period of time until I found it, or I select it in the WYSIWYG, click on source, and you can now see it's highlighted here. So that's that text selection plugin is huge. I really like it. If you select code within your, now let's do this paragraph. You select code within your source and go back to WYSIWYG. It takes you to where you want the source.
Yep, some of those were features that used to be on by default in older versions of the DNN CKEditor, so it's wonderful to have those turned back on again.
Yeah, and I'm not really sure why they got turned off. I don't know if there was some conflicts. We'll discuss later how there are some plugins that should by default work, but they don't. And so we'll take a look at that. So we added code mirror, we added text selection. I'm not going to add embed at this point because it may cause a problem. We'll go back to that, but that can be a beneficial plugin for you. There's some additional free plugins that are nice to have as well. There's an accessibility checker. It's kind of interesting because Ryan was talking about accessibility checking earlier. This is not nearly as powerful as that, but for some basic accessibility checking, I think it's great. There's a table resize where you can grab your cell or table border to resize instead of having to go into the source code or into table properties and modify those settings. And then there's a developer tools plugin as well that might help the core team with some of the issues. I know one of the issues that just came up on the DNN help was there was a phone field in the link dialog box that shouldn't be there. So we'll take a look at that. So I'm going to add accessibility checker, dev tools, and I'm getting old. My memory is getting short. Let's see, and table resize.
I noticed you have the embed there as well. That's a nice one if you're adding video stuff to your content.
Yeah, and it's true. And when I've gotten it to work, and we'll take a look at doing that. However, when I implemented it, I lost one of the other plugins that I'm going to demonstrate. The accessibility checker wouldn't display. So there may be a conflict with those. So we're looking at adding these additional free plugins. I just copied them over, but let's take a look at the steps real quick because one of these plugins, Accessibility Checker, has a button. And if the plugin you're installing has a button, there's a few more steps to actually installing the plugin. There's the first three steps are the same. But then we have to go ahead and we have to copy that buttons icon file from their icon folder and paste it into DNN Connect CKE's icon folder, or the CKEditor Provider's icon folder, depending on which version of DNN you're using. You then have to edit this DNN CK Toolbars button XML file and add the plugin name and the plugin icon's name. And that's located in the root of your portal folder. In this case, I only have one portal, so it's going to be under 0. So let's take a look at doing that. So I'm going to look for A11Y checker, which is the accessibility checker. And there's our icons folder. And I'll just go ahead and copy this. And let me expand the path here. And so you can see right under the root of dnnconnect.ck, there is the icons folder. I'll go ahead and open that and paste that file in. And you can see we have the icon in the icons folder. Now to configure these,
you mentioned that folder is in portal 0, so you have multiple portals.
well, actually, no,
the
icons folder is not in portal 0. The icons folder is under the root of the editor provider.
Okay, gotcha.
It's
Good.
it's the file we're going to take a look at editing next, which is under the portal root.
That's the XML file.
That's this XML file right here, CK Toolbars button XML file. I'll go ahead and open that with code. And I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste one of these tag sections here. And we'll just change the name of this one to A11Y checker. Let's save those changes. And then going back to our config settings.
And Steve, while you're pulling it up, you got a good question here in the chat from Eileen. Do these customizations change when you upgrade your site?
Yes, I believe they do, because these settings are actually stored in the database. There's a table called CKEditor settings. So you can find all of these properties in that table. Of course, your mileage will vary. I have had a couple instances that upgrades broke a lot of functionality of CKEditor, and I actually had to install Ingo's version of CKEditor to fix it. So we'll go ahead and add the plugins to the extra plugins property, and table resize and dev tools. We'll save those changes.
And so when you load up a new editor window, those changes are already in place. You're not having to restart the app pool. You're not having to clear cache or anything because this is loaded every time the editor is opened, right?
Yeah, and it was interesting because I raised this question, I think it was yesterday in DNN Help on, does restarting the application actually clear your cache as well?
I saw that.
Yeah, because I was experimenting with if it was actually needed in every instance. And I just found most of the times when you close the config and the editor window and go back in, those changes are available. So I haven't cleared the cache or restarted, and we'll take a look. If I go back to the custom toolbar, and we'll go back to full, make an edit. And here you can see we now have a button available to us. So let's locate, actually I want to put it right here. And we'll save those changes. And let me close this. And we'll reopen it. And it did not add it. Okay. So it's funny because I went through this presentation and adding this several times over the last few days, and it added it every time. And then earlier today, I had a problem. I thought it was just with an instance of my demo here that I was doing on my site 991-2, but apparently something going on that it is not adding to this version either. And these are both brand new instances.
And the refresh of the page doesn't apply?
Yeah, so I'm going to cancel out of there. And I'll even go one step further. We'll do the servers, clear cache.
Why not?
And we'll restart it. Yeah, I was hoping this wouldn't happen in the presentation. I thought it was just a fluke because every other time I've done it, it's worked. So, and then I'll even refresh the page just to be safe.
How many times have you rebooted?
My computer?
It was a joke. I mean, 3 times, right, Daniel? 3 times.
And a button's still not there, which is too bad because it's actually a pretty cool little plugin. Because if you click it, it would have told you that there's on these images, there's no alt definition. It would have told you that there's a title that shouldn't be there. And then it allows you to put in the definition, click on quick fix, it takes you to the next one, it deletes the title. And what's really cool, it even would come down to your table and realize that the first row in your table doesn't have headings or standard TD tags, and it would have changed those to table headings. So
nice.
That I couldn't get that one to work during the demonstration because yeah, it's worked every other time. And I wonder if that has to do, let me just check one more thing. How am I doing on time here?
One person suggested try another browser. That way it's not your browser's cache being a stickler.
Okay, we can do that.
Preferably not Internet Explorer. Although it may work in there.
I was going to say Internet Explorer 9.
I think from now on, that needs to be the browser that will not be named ever again.
Hey, it's not a browser anymore, so you can't say that, Jeremy.
I agree with you.
Did you try a hard refresh, like opening DevTools and doing a browser refresh?
No, I didn't. So let's see if using a new browser will fix that issue. Yep, still not there. So it's interesting. I'm gonna have to dig a little deeper and find out why it was working on previous instances of the demo that I went through, and then today stopped working. And David, you could be right. I haven't rebooted my computer in a while, so maybe I do need to reboot it 3 times.
You know, I see the opportunity for another blog article to go up on the community website. So, you know, it's not a bad thing.
Well, actually, there are already a couple articles I've come up with. There was even a question that I had missed on the blog comments. I wasn't notified that it came in, and somebody was asking about fonts. So yes, definitely more articles to come.
Yeah, font would be great.
And let's do one other edit. Oh, I do have dev tools there. Perfect. So one of the tools added was, or plugins added was dev tools. The other was table resize. If I go to my table now, you'll notice if I hover between the border of cells, I can actually resize cells, and I can resize the overall width of the table using that table resize plugin, which is a nice feature. I mean, if you're trying to, I don't know, kind of do a prototype site, if you're wanting specific sizes, yeah, definitely would want to go ahead and set those widths in the source code. What DevTools does for is if I go and let me select some text here, and let's go ahead and make a link out of this. And there it is. DevTools added these pop-ups so that you can identify some of the components of your elements. You can see the dialog box name, the tab, if that tab has multiple, or if that dialog box has multiple tabs, the element ID, and the element type. So the element ID in this case could be kind of beneficial if you're trying to expand this, trying to identify the problem of this phone number field as an example. We can see it's actually the element ID's tel number. So just an added little benefit if you're doing some development with the CKEditor.
Yeah, some troubleshooting.
Yeah. Okay. So that was adding some buttons, plugins with buttons. Let's take a look at what else. Okay, before I go into there, let's go ahead and add one more plugin, the embed plugin. Let's see.
Will, there's your opportunity. Chime in.
Let me go ahead and copy
I
this
missed it. I
over.
was playing with my lockbox.
He's getting ready to install the embed plugin.
Oh, the media module has the embed plugin installed.
The media
He was
module,
talking about that in the chat.
yeah, actually, embed. Let's see. No, I can't find that one. I think embed is called the media module, but embed's the actual module name.
Will was talking about the DNN media module, the core module, and it supporting embed.
Oh, okay, I got it.
It was a running joke. Sorry.
So let's go down to extra plugins, add embed. And also one of the reasons why I know this was a default plugin at one time is if we go to custom toolbars and once again, edit the full toolbar. Let's see, it's under insert, I believe. There's the embed button's already there. It just wasn't showing up because the plugin wasn't being registered, wasn't installed or registered. So let's save that. And we'll close this and reopen it. And now we have embed plugin, and you can click on it. Whoop, that's not the one, that's select all. You click on it and then you put in your title, your URL, and if it's a video, you can specify whether there's no resize, responsive resize, or specific resize. So that can be pretty beneficial. Actually, you can see here, I've already used embed on this site to install a YouTube video. What I like about the embed is it does accept a lot of different media types, so it can be useful. So there are some free plugins that would be really cool to have, but I couldn't get them to work. Once again, I could install the module, I could configure the button, put the button on a toolbar, but the button just doesn't show up, much like the accessibility checker didn't. Some of those modules are, well, actually, this one is there, content templates, which allows you to quickly add predefined layouts. I think it's a cool little template, could be really beneficial if you're adding Bootstrap layouts. For somebody that doesn't know Bootstrap, you can go ahead and configure the templates. The problem is I can never get the template to work. I can't modify it, and I can't create my own. I can't just seem to get that to work. If anyone has any experience with that and knows how to do it, I'd love to hear from you.
I think Joe Craig might have some insight on that one. I've heard him mention it before.
I used to modify the older one that was around and had some pretty good success with it, but you have to go in and edit the files, on the server or by FTP.
Yeah, and there's two ways to do it. You can do it through a JavaScript file, or you can do it through an XML file. So there's two template types.
Yep, I seem to remember that, and I had more luck with the JavaScript, surprisingly, and I would make these strings that would get injected. Yep.
Part of the problem with that is, let's get this, whoops, let's swap over to this. Here you can see there's the templates button. So it actually works. You can insert these predefined templates. Kind of a nice feature. Like I said, it could be useful. But in order to create custom ones, you either have to modify that file, which I've done, but those changes never seem to get reflected in here, or you would point to a custom file. And that would be under the main settings, configuration. There's editor template files. You pick the location and pick the file, but DNN is blocking upload of JavaScript and XML files at this point. And I actually kind of posted a question earlier today, how you get around that, because I went in to add those, to allow those files, and I still couldn't even do it. Every time I added the files to allowed extensions and saved it, went back in, those changes I made were gone. So
there may be some security overlap there, specifically with the HTML editor through the CKEditor that is blocking. Even those extensions are allowed through the file upload and through the file manager, they may not be allowed through this.
Well, yeah, that's what I thought. That was my first reaction. But then when I went to, I would assume what isn't site assets.
Right.
Wouldn't that be different? Shouldn't I, if I allowed it through DNN, shouldn't site assets allow me to upload those files?
Should be.
Yeah. Yeah, and I couldn't do it. I could.
Did you go into security settings to change the allowed file extensions first?
Yes, if I went to
Yeah, I think it's under security now.
For a file like this,
site settings, site behavior, more.
There it is.
And just a custom. I added them here.
I think, don't quote me on this, but I think there's two places. You also have to go into security module. That one is for the instance.
Yeah, you know, I thought it used to be under security.
Yeah, if memory serves good, not here, but there's in the persona bar an actual module called security.
Yeah,
So I'm sorry, I clicked on servers, not security.
Yeah, if memory serves good, you have a instance-wide setting. Well, more settings.
Oh, you know what?
So this is what the instance allows, and then the other one you were on is for the individual site, because you can have multiple sites.
Okay.
So I think you need to add them at both places.
Okay. But that's a whole nother debate on whether it's a good idea to allow users to upload JavaScript and XML files. So we'll talk about that another time. I'll see if I can't get this.
Yep.
one. So there's some additional free plugins that aren't working that I thought were kind of cool. There's copy formatting, which is the core plugin for CKEditor. And that's kind of like format painter in Word or PowerPoint. You select some formatted text, click on the button. Like I said, I could get it installed. I could create the button, it just won't show up on the toolbar. Same with code snippets. So this is great if you were trying to write some web page content that you needed to display some code, and you can specify the language, JavaScript, JSON. Pretty cool little plugin from what I could see. And then I also noticed when I was in there, there's a QR code button. But when I searched for the QR code plugin on the CKEditor website, I couldn't find it. So that might have been retired, and the button was just never removed from the editor. And there you can see the buttons, you know, still in the default settings. And then there's some paid plugins that you can use to enhance CKEditor. There's a really cool one, I think, called Bootstrap 4 Editor. It's $14.90 a month if you want to spend that kind of money. But they claim you can effortlessly edit Bootstrap 4 content right in your editor. That plugin requires a free dependency plugin called N1ED. And it transforms your editor into a modern page builder with widgets. And that one's actually kind of cool as well. Do we have time to look at that, or we need to wrap it up?
We are just reaching that wrap-up time. We should save it for another one and a good article.
Okay. Yeah, okay, and then we'll do that.
Show us a quick demo.
Do you have it running anywhere?
No, I don't. So,
well, you know, there might be a segue. You know, your resources here is what I was going to ask you about. That you've mentioned these plugins, and a lot of them are exciting. I pulled up the CKEditor website and their add-on section, and there are a bunch of interesting-looking ones. I didn't scroll far before I found one that said auto link, for instance. You paste in something that it can detect as a web URL or an email address, and it automatically turns it into a link. I would love that. That's a great looking plugin. Do you have any tips on how to evaluate these, whether we know they're safe, whether we know they're good, or that they'll work, or is it trial and error?
Okay, so you'll notice on this page right here, author CK source. These are all developed by the CKEditor team. So I assume that they are pretty safe and secure, but once again, that's an assumption. I haven't actually read anything, but these would be considered core plugins. There are a lot of other plugins by different authors. Yeah, I'd be a little bit more concerned about that.
Okay.
I actually haven't looked in to see if CKEditor team evaluates plugins that they list on their site for any security issues. But there's one thing that we should look at, like you said, AutoLink. Let me do a search for that. And there's the plugin you were talking about. If I click on it, I get more details about it. But as I mentioned, if you're going to install a plugin, you want to make sure it's the correct plugin for the version you're using. In this case, if I scroll down, you can see there's different versions of the plugin available for different CKEditor plugins. You would locate the one you want to download, and when you download it, it kind of gives you some great information here, where to put the plugin and what the folder name should be, and then the name for the plugin on the extra plugin setting. But what's really a thing you should keep a note on is add-on dependencies. So you need to make sure you also have any plugins that are listed in the add-on dependencies list here installed as well.
Yeah, like that one NED that you were describing.
Exactly. So,
all right. Well, we have had a few questions coming up in the chat while you've been going through, and we've generally asked the questions or kind of brought it into you. There was one question early on that was coming in almost at the exact same time you started talking. It came into DNN Open Help Slack channel, and this one person described that they added the autosave plugin to their CKEditor, and they can configure it, but when they update the module, they don't see it working. They were asking if it wasn't compatible. I wonder if it was something like what you were running into, where it just didn't enable all the way.
Yeah, I'll actually take a look at that later and play around with that plugin. I haven't tried that one yet. But there is one resource I wanted to point out. Ingo had a Codeplex site originally before they decided to shut down Codeplex, and he moved his information over to GitHub. That site had some really great information on it. There was an issues page that had all kinds of issues to help troubleshoot, and a discussions page. But unfortunately, as you can see, this is going to be shut down July 21st. Yep. So I downloaded the archive, and it does contain all of the issues and discussions, but each one is in its separate folder, so not the best way to navigate. But I'll see what I can do with that. Yeah.
Turn it into a wiki. All right. Well, from our group here online with us, do we have any other questions for Steve and this deep dive into working in the current CKEditor and the ability to put in some better configuration settings, turn on some of the plugins that are present but not installed correctly or fully? I know this is going to be my thing for the weekend. I'm going to go dive in and add these into my favorite sites and be thrilled to have back some of these features. Any questions from the rest of the group? There are some questions, and Steve, maybe you can chime into that a little bit. One person saying, compared to, you mentioned that both versions of CKEditor are being maintained right now, CKEditor 4 and CKEditor 5. David is mentioning that right now, CKEditor 4.15.1 is the top version number that is in place in most DNN instances. Depending on the age of your DNN instance, you might be running 4.5 point whatever. Or if you used, the other one, which I do often, I'm at 4.12 point whatever. So kind of the overall question is, are there some features in CKEditor 5 that are just amazing that you think we should really try and push towards and get a version running because it's so desperately worth it? Or are there not really that many changes and it's just a difference of, you know, the code base of what they're in right now?
You know, I haven't looked at it in quite some time because, you know, my primary focus is CKEditor 4 because that's what we have to work with. Just for security and performance issues, I think it would be something to look at. I understand it's a huge task compared to just updating CKEditor from version 4.5.3 to 4.15.
Right.
So.
Right. Well,
I'll look into
Steve,
that.
Thank you. Do that. Thank you very much for joining us tonight and for putting you know, these things in front of us and making us aware of them. I've jotted down many notes. I'm going to ask you to send me some of your slides so I can grab those and put them into the article that we post. We will post the articles on our SoFri website. We will post, like Will was talking about earlier, we will dual post and put it up on the DNN community website. So in the next couple of days, you'll see that go up so that you can watch this video recording, play back through it, and also have access to some of those resources. If you missed them on video, you don't have to type them out again. We'll try and put some of that text there so it's easy access. David, do you have any other closing things as we kind of wrap up here?
Nope. Thank you, Steve, for joining us. And thank you, Will. I know Will had to jump off just now, but thank you guys for presenting this month. And just for everybody else's sake, I mean, the entire year is scheduled out there with speakers. So
Perfect.
Please be
That's
sure
right.
to check out the meetup.com there and you know, see what's out there. Even if you're not going to be able to attend in person, please do register for the event. It kind of gives us a sense of who all is interested in watching, even after the fact playback. So it just kind of encourages us to do more and to, you know, work harder at getting more speakers involved. So thanks for speaking. And Steve, if you don't mind, send me over that list of resources and links, and I'll be sure to get those onto the YouTube channel, as well as I'm sure Ryan will include those in the blog post on the Southern Friday website.
No problem.
So like David was saying, we do have the rest of the year scheduled out, and it's all out on that meetup. But our next Southern Friday User Group meeting will be July the 15th. It's always the third Thursday of the month, and July 15th. And that next month meeting will be during the daytime. So we are doing those at, I should have glanced before I said it out loud, 3 o'clock Eastern,
yes,
David?
3 p.m. Eastern time.
3 p.m. Eastern. All right. So our next month's meeting will be during the daytime, 3 p.m. Eastern. And everyone sign up on Meetup so we know how many people are coming, and we're looking forward to seeing you then. We'll go ahead and sign off and say goodnight, everyone. Thank you very much.
Good night.